George's Park, and Kirsty Edwards has the squad. It's just broken. Kirsty, any surprises?
Yeah, hot off the press, we have this 25-player squad just announced. And I guess the key headline is, we were talking earlier over whether Beth Mead and Chloe Kelly would both be in the same squad together. The short answer is yes, they are. There is also a return for Fran Kirby as well. So let's take a look at this squad in full then. We'll start with the goalkeepers, because there is a change there. We've gone from 3 goalkeepers to 4. And it is Manchester City's Kiara Keaton, who is back for the first time since last July, when England faced the Republic of Ireland and Sweden. Looking at defence as well, Lucy Parker called into the squad from the start. Now, she was in the last one, but only as a replacement when she was called in to replace Lottie Woodburn-Moy in defence. In midfield, I mentioned Fran Kirby back. Now, we haven't seen her since last year. She picked up an injury in the game against the USA late in November. So this is her first call-up since that injury. There's also a first senior call-up today for Brighton's Macy Simons. And also in midfield, we've got the likes of Grace Clinton, who scored that brilliant goal on Sunday for Manchester United against Aston Villa. Jess Park also in midfield as well. A couple of injuries, Laura Blinkill-Brown and Ruby Mace, both missing through injury. And in terms of the forwards, I mentioned there, Beth Mead and Chloe Kelly, both in this squad. Beth Mead, of course, had to pull out of the last squad, so Chloe Kelly came in as her replacement. But this time around, they are both in the squad from the start. And it does mean that Tottenham's Jez Naz is a notable absentee. So plenty to talk to Sarina Wiegman about very shortly. She'll be here holding her press conference as we get ready for this double header against Belgium, the first game of which will be in Bristol. That's going to be a week on Friday, and then they head to Belgium the following Tuesday. So, yeah, you can hear from Sarina Wiegman very, very soon. Tough start to the season. How important is it to see her back enjoying her football and back, importantly, getting some pitch time?
Yeah, of course that's important, because then you get in a rhythm. What we want, of course, that she shows her qualities and that she's at her best, because that will help the team. And then first you need the minutes, and what you can tell that she's enjoying it now.
And Fran Kirby is back. She seems to be really finding her feet now at Brighton and thriving again. How good is that to see, and what does an in-form Fran Kirby bring England?
Yeah, she brings, of course, lots of experience, good football vision. On her position, there's a lot of competition going on, but she knows exactly what's expected on this level of the game, and you can see that at Brighton too, what she brings.
Just talking more generally about the women's game, we've seen some real positives. We've seen some record-breaking crowds outside of the WSL. You know, the likes of Newcastle, Ipswich, Bournemouth, at big stadiums. How positive is that for the game?
Yeah, that's really positive. It shows the growth of the game. It shows that people are very excited about the game and want to watch, and that's really good. And hopefully we'll keep growing, and it goes with ups and downs, but this is really good, and we need to see all these good things and keep working hard to make everything get everything in a better place.
And just on a negative, we have seen some criticism recently about some of the pitches that players have been on. I'm thinking specifically of the Real Madrid game recently. How concerned are you about seeing your players on those kind of pitches?
Yeah, of course, that was really disappointing. The weather was horrible there, and you had hoped that they would play in Bernabeu. I don't know how you pronounce that, or how you say that in English, but then I think he could have prevented. I think it would have been a little bit hard anyway because of the weather circumstances there. But you want better pitches. There have been some moments now that the pitches were actually really poor, a little bit dangerous too. And that's what we said, with ups and downs. We need to keep working on these things and get players on pitches that are really good. that they can show their performances at the highest level, but also takes away risks of injuries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsty.
Hi, Sarina. Nice
Hi.
to see you. We often talk about kind of the balance between the short-term aim of the next game and the Nations League, and then the slightly longer-term look at the Euros preparation as well. Where do you feel we sit in that balance going into this camp with the second last one before the tournament?
Yeah. Well, of course, we approach the Nations League. We want to do really well in the Nations League because that gives us a better position for the qualifying for the World Cup. But at the same time, it is preparation for the Euros. So we want to see players, and we want to take the opportunity to see these players in our environments, in training sessions, but also in the games, of course. And the closer you get to the tournaments, the more decisions or more decisive decisions you will have to take for the tournament. That's too early now, but of course, again, this next camp will give us a lot of information about where players stand. I know we also have some injuries, and hopefully, the players who are injured can come back in a pretty good period of time that we can see them where they're at.
Yeah, you mentioned the injuries. Do you have any kind of update on where we're at with Alex or Georgia or Lauren? Any of those?
Well, I can't be very specific on all these injuries. There's a list of it. They have been out for a while, and it will take some more time. I can't give you any time schedule on that. I think that's something also for the club. I can tell you my hopes that they are back in a good shape and ready to play, of course, in the short term and get ready for, of course, it starts with performances and being fit, but for Euros.
And can I also ask you about the World Sevens football tournament that was announced last week? Obviously, it's launching in May. How would you feel about potentially some of your players playing in an extra seven-a-side tournament 6 weeks before the Euros?
Yeah, it's. I've read it too, of course. I think in the longer term, like you see, they're planning a bit. I don't see how you can get that fit in the schedule. If you look at the short term before these Euros now, for some players, I think they would play, and there's collaboration with clubs. We have very good contact with clubs, and they would get some meaningful minutes to get prepared for the Euros and do what's right to get at the best possible shape for the Euros. Then in this short term, for some it would not be too bad. But in longer term, I don't see how we can fit that in the schedule, in the calendar.
Players have quite understandably in the past talked about fears about being overloaded, about playing too much football. Do you think the addition of this new tournament would at all undermine those concerns?
Well, like we're talking about the longer term on this tournament, the shorter term, if you see now the calendar for this summer, there is a gap, and there's a gap of no football, and where players can have a little bit of rest, but at the same time, players need to keep going because you want to be at your best at the Euros, and there's a window where we play Portugal and Spain in May, June, and there's a gap of, well, say about, there's a gap of no competitive games for about a month. And of course, I'm a bit worried about that because players who are coming back for injuries, they want to keep going, get in a rhythm. So that's a challenge in the calendar, which I hope will be solved in the future.
And just finally on that topic, have you received any assurances that if any of your players were to be involved in that seven-a-side tournament, that they wouldn't be kind of overworked, essentially?
No, I haven't get any assurances. What we have done club visits, we have conversations with clubs, and what we all want in collaborations that the players who are selected for the squad come in really fresh and fit and ready to go, and that's the aim. It's all about performances at the Euros, and that's what we're talking about. And we have a very good relationship with all the clubs we've spoken to. And
also, there's been some reports in the past weeks as well about maybe a bit of an impasse between players and the FA over bonuses related to the Euros. Just what's your read on that situation and those negotiations?
I was a bit surprised about the article. I think that the FA and the players are in conversation about that. And for my opinion, what I've heard from it, I'm not involved in these conversations, we're going into the right direction. And I hope we'll keep going and we get to an agreement very quickly, because that brings calmness before the tournament.
Yeah, there was obviously a comparable situation maybe before the World Cup. Is there any frustration that there's conversations about this topic again?
I wouldn't compare the two. Because it is a little bit different, because the UEFA is involved, the FIFPro has been involved in these things. So I think, and I hope, that we get to an agreement pretty soon.